Yes. You can't make it up. And then you come down there and there's food flying like it's going out of style, right? But yeah.
Yaakov, if you post it, you could compete with the Benny Friedman post.
I didn't see what that was all about. Yeah. Anyways, okay, ready to roll.
Yeah, but one second. I think they're opening up chasnas this week. No,
I have no idea. I get my news from the daf. That's where I get my news. So whatever the Olam tells me the news, that's when I know the news.
Unless you make the news.
I hope not to make the news. Yeah, that was trying to stay away from.
Well, if you post this video, you'll be making news.
That's one thing I'm not missing is running to the weddings. For some reason, I can't be bothered about that.
Yes, it's a wonderful thing. It's a wonderful thing. But yeah. Okay, ready? So we're on the Pei Dalet Amud Beis. I did see a few masks in Borough Park. I did see a few people wearing masks.
Tiago, when Cuomo made an announcement, I think March 15th or something, he said he's going to allow weddings again. So Satmar replied back this tweet, Satmar headquarters, "Thank you, Mr. Governor. Finally, we can make weddings again."
Yeah. Okay.
This video cannot be sent. Please choose a different video.
6 lines up from the bottom.
It's not letting me send it.
Yeah, so Itmar. So Itmar, yeah? Aver, so we're discussing the meat on the bone. You're not allowed to break the bone of the korban pesach. That's Itmar. Aver she'enol of kazayas basar. If you have a limb, a bone of the korban pesach, but it doesn't have a kazayas of basar on it. But makam zeh, in this place, in this part of the bone, but it does on the other end of the bone, let's say, it does have a kazayas. So Rabbi Yochanan Amar yesh ba mishum shviras etzem, that is enough. As long as on that bone there's a kazayas of basar, then if you break it, that would have the isser of breaking the bone. It does not have shviras etzem. Okay, so that's the Machlokes of Yochanan and Rish Lakish. Meaning Rish Lakish holds it has to have a kazayas in the area that you're breaking it. Okay, so Eisver of Yochanan and Rav Shimon Lakish, the pasuk says, don't break the bone. Echad etzem sheyesh alav kazayas basar, echad etzem she'ein alav kazayas basar. It's regardless of whether the limb has basar on it, you're going to be chayiv. So what does it mean? My ain alav kazayas basar. What does it mean? There's no kazayas basar on it. Ilam ain alav kazayas basar klal. If there's no basar on it at all, my yesh b'mishum shviras etzem. Why is there an isser of shviras etzem? Elalav. What it means? Hachi kamar echad etzem sheyesh alav kazayas basar b'makam zeh. Whether it has a kazayas in this spot where you're breaking it, or whether it doesn't have in the spot, and it has another kazayas of basar someplace else, it's going to be chayiv. So this is a kasha on Rish Lakish, who says it doesn't have shviras etzem unless it has the actual kazayas of meat right near the bone where you're breaking it. So Amalei, now we're on Amud Aleph, Amalei, loy. No, that's not what it's saying. This is what the Bryce is saying. Whether there's meat on the bone from the outside, and whether the bone does not have meat on the outside, but it has a kazayas of basar on the inside, meaning the marrow, in the place where it gets broken, right? But meaning the wherever you broke the bone, the marrow has to be right there by the break.
And then it's not a problem for breaking the bone?
That's what the Bryce is telling when it says echad etzem sheyesh alav kazayas, echad etzem she'ein alav kazayas. That's what we're trying to figure out. So we're saying what it means ein alav kazayas. Yes, it means that there's no kazayas of meat on the outside, but there's a kazayas of meat on the inside, and therefore you're going to be chayav on that. Right? V'atanya. This Vatanya is not a kasha; it's a proof. Right? Sometimes Rashi says Vatanya is benichusa. You don't read it with a kasha, you read it as a statement. Vatanya, we have a proof to this from a brisa. It says Va'etzem leisish b'rubai. Don't break a bone. Echad etzem sheyesh b'mayach, v'echad etzem she'ein b'mayach. That's whether it's a bone that has marrow in it or whether it doesn't have marrow in it. So what are you going to do with the pasuk that you're supposed to eat the basar b'layla hazeh? The basar shal gabi etzem. Is that talking about the basar that goes on top of the bone? It doesn't go with the meat that's inside the bone, which is the marrow. So then what are you going to talk about? What are you going to say the pasuk means don't break the bone? And it's talking about a bone that doesn't have mayach. Right? But if it's a bone that has the mayach in it and the marrow in it, shayber, you can break it, and you and eat it. And don't wonder, because you're going to say that the essay of eating the meat of the marrow is going to be right? So that's what the Gemara wants to say. That's one side, meaning and when it says that the etzem you shouldn't break, the bone you shouldn't break on Pesach Sheni, that doesn't need to tell you. We don't need a pasuk to tell us by Pesach Sheni because we know it says by Pesach Sheni all the laws of the Pesach Rishon apply to Pesach Sheni. So what do we have to say? So what we're stuck saying, not stuck saying, but that's what we have to say, that it's talking about a bone, whether it has marrow in it, whether it doesn't have marrow in it. So, but kitzur amai, so that's what this Bryce is coming to tell you, that you're going to be chayav on bones, whether it has meat on the outside or whether it has meat on the inside. Fine. So then when I ask a kasha, so meisvei, this is for all the meat people, this Bryce here. So if a limb of the part of the limb of an animal went outside of yerushalyim, right, which means that it becomes passul. So now, how are you gonna? What are you doing with this? With the rest of the korban pesach that's attached to this limb? So you cut the meat until you get to the bone, then kailef, and then you peel it back until you reach the end of that bone, and then chaytech, and then you cut off the bone, right? Because like this, you're getting rid of the bone, right? And then what you're going to do is you're going to peel off the meat, because part of that meat gets eaten, part of that meat doesn't get eaten, right? Not again, only part of the bone went out of yerushalyim. So only part of the bone is passul. So the part of the bone.
Why can't you just cut it like this? Why do you got to peel it back and then cut it?
Because you don't want to cut. Well, that's what Gemara is going to say. Why can't you just cut the bone?
Cut the whole thing.
I know, but you're not allowed to cut the korban.
Are you not allowed to cut the korban pesach?
You're not only that you're allowed to cut the non-kosher part, but not the kosher part.
So you mean that one line?
And you can't waste the meat either. The meat that wasn't passul, you got to eat. Otherwise, there's an issur leaving it over, right? I'm saying I can't say I understand exactly what you're doing here with the meat, but it seems like what it is
Frenching it.
Frenching it?
It's called Frenching. Yeah.
Frenching?
I understand, but what does that gain?
You can't break the bone.
They said then you do break the bone afterwards.
No, you're breaking it.
You
no,
don't.
You're not breaking
you separate
the
the joint.
You separate it from the limb.
You separate it at the joint.
Oh, okay. Okay, got it.
So so you can't break the bone straight down. So what you have to do is you have to cut the meat until you get to the bone. Then you peel the meat back, and then you cut it. You detach it. But that's what I was going to ask. And if you're going to say that if a limb that doesn't have a kazayas meat in this section, in this area, but it does have a kazayas meat on the other end of the limb, there's no issur to break it. So lamali the kailif. Why do you have to peel it until it reaches the end of the joint and then chaytech and cut it? Nikleif bei purta. Just peel away some of the meat and then break it. V'nisbrei and break it, right? Because we just said that if there's no meat by the bone, according to that opinion, right? If there's no meat by the bone, then you're allowed to break the bone. So why do you need this whole complicated thing? Elamai, you're not allowed to break the bone, even when there's no meat directly by the bone. So that's the kasha. So Abaya Amar Mashum Paka. No, Abaya says, now we're afraid that you're going to break the bone, right? You're gonna end up, if you're gonna break the bone by, again, I just want to make it clear. So we're saying you peel back the meat off the bone, of that went out of Yerushalayim, and then just break it right there. Right? That's the kasha. So Abaye says, no, we're afraid you're going to break it right there. That, what happens? It might not be a smooth break, and it may end up getting cracked further down where there is meat, in which case you're going to be over Nisa Daraisa. Right? Ravina says, it's pigul. It's talking about by the thigh bone, which has lots of marrow in the thigh bone. So since there's a lot of marrow in there, there's a lot of marrow in there, so therefore there's an issue to break it. So therefore you have a problem. Right? The kasha, right? Rabbi Kiva Eger asks a kasha, isn't it davar she'eino mischaven? Right? Meaning, let's say you're breaking the bone where you're allowed to, because there's no meat there. And so Abaye is saying, but we're afraid that you're going to end up breaking the bone further down where there is meat. So Rabbi Kiva Eger asks, so what do you mean? It's davar she'eino mischaven. Right? As we're learning, we learn Shabbos. It's not, you have no kavanah to do that. It's not a psik reisha. It's not an automatic. And you don't want it to happen. So what's the chashash? Right? Okay, but that's the kasha. That's the kasha that they ask.
Well, why? Abaye doesn't see, it seems, according to Abaye, it seems like it isn't automatic.
No, it's the way it's Shema. Rashi says Shema yipakav yishavar tachas avasa. Perhaps. Rabbi is concerned that perhaps that's going to happen. Right? When you break the part that you're allowed to break, we're afraid that break is going to continue further down. So I think, I don't think it's an automatic. I mean, you're right. If you learn the Gemara straight up, it doesn't say Shema. Right? It just says, but the way Rashi's saying it, it's saying Shema Yipaka. Right? Okay. Fine.
I don't know anything, but there's more meat on the top of the leg, not the bottom of the leg. Parrots, you know anything about a goat leg or a lamb leg? Is there any meat built from the knee down? You don't know. Okay, fine. Okay.
Why are you saying that?
Nothing.
No,
There's nothing to eat from the knee down.
What?
On a lamb.
There's nothing to eat there.
No, nothing.
So that's what we're talking about. That's what went out from the knee down. That's what went out of the chayma. Right?
Right.
I'm just trying to get a picture. I'm nothing. It's not important what I'm saying.
Yeah. Okay, so let's see. Now here's your Gemara with the a very interesting Gemara here. Tanan Hasan, they learned over there. Ha pigul van nosar, metamenas hayadayim. Pigul and nosar, right? Pigul again is when the kohen decides that he's going to have in mind that this korban, he's going to eat it not in its proper place or not in its proper time. So that passul's up the korban. So if you have a kohen who wants to get revenge against the Yisrael who's asking him to be makar of the korban, so he could do this, right? But once the korban becomes pigul, it becomes tamei, right? So a pigul it doesn't become tamei; it makes your hands tamei. So Rav Huna Rav Chisda Chada Chashadei Kahuna. Rav Huna Rav Chisda once says the reason is because we're afraid of the kohanim. Right? Because meaning we're afraid of the kohanim that are going to make their other people's korbanos into pigul, and we want to be able to catch them. So if we make their hands tamei, then everybody's gonna know, because now all of a sudden they have to go be matar their hands. So then we're gonna chap which kohanim, because pigul is something that's just in the mind. There's no.
Wouldn't they do this once and then we would know, and they would like remove them from doing the avoda?
Forever, you're saying?
I don't know. Like if we found out that they were doing this on purpose, halachos, we would let them continue to do this again and again and again. Why not just remove them from their post? They're done. They're obviously they got issues.
I don't know. It's an excellent
being
question.
the tamei that you're dying is not going to help for halachos. They're just not going to do it. Finished. If they're doing a halachos, they're not going to go kiddushim reglayim.
No, but what he's saying is that he's not gonna. What are you asking a different kasha? You're giving an answer.
No, he's asking why are they going to be makpid? Why are they going to be makpid all of a sudden to wash their hands? They're being a troublemaker.
Right. That's an excellent question. That's Tosfos kasha.
That's Tosfos.
Right, it's Tosfos kasha. That's Tosfos kasha. Here you got this guy. He's making a korban passul, and if you eat it, you chayav korbanos. And then we're going to tell him, he's going to wash his hands. We're going to make him wash his hands, and therefore he's not going to do it. He doesn't care about a chayav korbanos. He's going to care about washing hands. He's gonna.
Almost like it's like a maneuver.
Parrot says it's. I thought if she have this is COVID toisvis. It's COVID toisvis.
But we had it similar. We had it similar like this.
What are you saying, Parrot? Go ahead.
We had a similar concept like this. It was a lot worse. I don't remember what it was. Something with tashmish or something. Was it Turei de rice or something?
Yes, we had this. Yes, we had it.
That's Toysvis.
No, but you say I think Parrot's referring to something that we had already since the beginning.
Yeah. We had something. I don't remember what it was, and we're like, the guy's going to be over on the rice or chorus, and I don't remember what it was. Something similar concept.
Yes, and he didn't care about the chorus and it. Yeah. Rabar, what do you want to say?
No, this is it. I'm sure you have probably 1,000 guys that are makbid. They're eating a hamantash every day from today till Purim, but chas v'shalom they'll put on a mask. They'll go to shul without a mask, but they'll definitely makbid eat a hamantash every day.
You mean for the schoolers? You mean talking about schooler people?
For the schoolers, yeah.
I don't need it for the schooler.
What does the mask have to do with the
well, you're no chiddush that eat hamantash every day. You're a hot shot,
Right. No, it's a strange thing that people. I mean, you see it. It's not only bisman hazeh. It was bismaneim too. A guy's scared of tumah. He's scared of tumah, but he's not scared of chorus. It's crazy. It's mamish. It's crazy. It's crazy. But okay, but that's what Taisus is saying. So again, the reason why we're making
chorus is not on the Kohen. So Yaakov, the chorus is not on the Kohen. The chorus was on the
chorus is if you eat it.
Not on the Kohen. The Kohen goes scot-free.
Right.
Just
no.
Sins.
Yes, the guy who eats it, meaning he doesn't care about his friend being chai of chorus potentially, but you tell him that his hands are tamei, and he says, "Ooh," right? It's crazy. It's wild. It's wild. Okay, but that's at least we know that we're not crazy bisman hazeh, right?
Not that they don't care about it, Yaakov, is that it's more palpable to understand theoretically tumah and tahara. It affects your everyday real life. Kares, you don't know what the real story is up in Shemayim. You understand that you did this avera and it's kares, but like, okay, right?
Right, but it's still awesome. But it's still a big isser.
I'm not saying it is. It isn't. It's the perception of what right. the punishment.
I hear. Fair enough. Even though tumah and tahara ain't no easy thing to understand, right?
Yeah, but people move away from you like the plague. Just like the COVID. You can't see it, but everyone acts like they're on fire. Everyone else is on fire. They have to move away from them.
Yeah.
Same idea.
Yeah. Right. Very good. Okay. So anyway, Rav Chisda says kahuna. We want to make sure that these guys don't end up doing pigul. Kahuna for the lazy kohanim. Now each one goes on. Meaning we're talking about two things here: pigul and nosar. So mar masni a pigul. The first mandam was going on pigul, so we're afraid of the kohanim, of the chashadik, mar masni a nosar, and the other one is going on nosar, meaning we want to make it tamei so that we inspire these kohanim to make sure that they eat up all the meat. Right? Mar masni kazayis or mar masni kabeya. Did I skip? No, right. So mar masni kazayis or mar masni kabeya. One learns that it's the shear to make it the shear in order to make the hands tamei is a kazayis. So mar masni kabeya. Now one says it's an egg size. Man the masni kazayis ki isura. The one that says it's like kazayis is the way it became osir. The minimum amount of meat that's necessary to make it osir is a kazayis. So man the masni kabeya betuma kituma. So it's going like tuma, which we know that any food less than a kabeya cannot become tamei. Fine. So iboilu. Now they had a shaila. So again, let's just recap what we've been saying till now. That a bone that goes out of the yerushalyim, so that itself becomes passul, right? And now we're saying that pigul and nosar make the hands tamei. So Gemara is going to ask us like a combination. Iboilu yaitza, if the meat goes out, right, of yerushalyim, gazu rabbanan tumah eloi, did they make a gezeira of tumah on that or not? Meaning we know there's tumah on pigul, we know there's tumah on nosar. Is there a tumah the part of the korban that goes out of yerushalyim. Mi amrina nosar the gazru tuma. Do we say nosar? They made a gzera tuma the asila atzulebe, because you're going to get lazy with it and you're going to end up leaving over korbanos. Aval yaitza, but to go out, afuke biyadayim loy mafki biyadayim. A person's not going to take meat purposely and go bring it out of yerushalyim. So loy gazer rabbanon tuma. So rabbanon didn't have to make gzera tuma iduma loishna, or they didn't differentiate. And anytime a korban becomes passul, then they're going to say that it makes tuma, right? Fine. So tashema, aver sheyotza miktsasa. If an aver goes out, some of it goes out of yerushalyim. Chaytich at shemagil le'etzem. Right. We just had this. It's also going to be the Mishna on Amud Beis. You cut it until you reach the bone. V'kailif, and you peel it back at shemagil le'perak until it reaches the how do you touch it? The joint. V'chaytich, and then you cut it. V'i amr gazer rabbanon tuma. And if you say that this thing is tamei, what does it help to cut it? It's tamei, right? Meaning the part that went out of yerushalyim is tamei, and it's going to make the part that was inside tamei, right? So the whole thing, meaning the whole animal is now tamei. So it must be that, meaning this, the Mishna is giving this whole complicated procedure. If the limb goes out of yerushalyim, that you have to cut it the meat and then peel it back, etc., etc. If the part that goes out of yerushalyim becomes tamei, it's going to go transfer the tumah to the rest of the animals. So you can't eat it at all, right? So it must be that it doesn't become tamei when it goes out of yerushalyim. So the Gemara answers no. Tuma starim tuma starim loimetama. This is called a hidden tumah, and tuma starim loimetama doesn't make things tamei. Meaning the only time that something can make something else tamei is if it's open, right? Not if it's hidden. So therefore, right? So the part of the bone that went out of yerushalyim, so that part is tamei. How is it making the rest of it tamei? Right? It didn't touch the outside. The bone became tamei, or the meat became tamei. It's not touching the outside of the animal of all the meat in order to make the rest of it tamei. It's going through the bones or through the meat. So that's called tumah of benister. And tumah benister doesn't make anything else tamei. It's sort of the same thing with a chatzitza, right? If somebody has to go to the mikveh who has something inside their body, right? Somebody with a pacemaker. Is a pacemaker a chatzitza? It's not a chatzitza, right? Somebody has a cast. That is a chatzitza because it's on the outside. Something that's way inside the body doesn't cause any sort of chatzitza. So the same thing, it doesn't cause tumah to travel if it's just inside. So memela, there's nothing that touched the outside of the animal, so therefore it's not going to make anything else tamei. But theoretically, the bones that go out of yerushalyim can become tamei. Fine. So then the Gemara says, Ravina, but according to Ravina, Damar chibure oichlin lav chiburhu, that foods that touch each other is not considered a chibur, right? So, and it's as if they're detached. What are you going to say? Here, the foods are touching, right? So if they're touching, then they should be metama. Meaning again, Ravina holds that attached foods is not considered attached, and they're as if they're separated. Yeah, meaning there's something called what is it called again? Meaning when something's imidly kotzitz, it's considered like kotzitz. Why does, again, going back using mikvah, right? Using mikvah as an example. How come you have to cut your nails before you go to the mikvah? Obviously, we're talking about for a ger, or we're talking about for an isha. Because since you cut your nails, so kala imidli kotzitz, kikotzitz dummy. It's as if it's already cut, and therefore it's as if something foreign is on the body, right? Hair, nails, right? So if I cut my nails on a steady basis, that means the nail that's growing here is considered, since it's going to be detached in the next week, 2 weeks, so therefore we look at it like it's already detached and it's just something foreign that's on my body, so therefore I have to cut it because it's a chatzitza. So Ravina says the same thing, that any limb that's going to eventually be cut is considered cut right now, even though it's still attached.
So what do you allow some nail? Like, you can't cut the whole thing off.
So you have to be realistic. So the part that you plant right now, that's why the woman's supposed to cut their nails short, because the part that's still attached to the body, that right now is not going to be cut. But the part that's longer that they normally cut, which is very overrated, because really the shear for a woman is really, you hold up the hand this way to the face, and if you don't see a nail sticking out, that's enough. That's not what the women do. The women are cutting their nails way down to the skin. It's got to be. They have to be pretty long. Yeah, the ikar shear. Yeah, I don't know if my nails ever grew that long. To hold up your palm to your face and you don't see the nail sticking up, that's short enough for mikvah. Okay, that's a different.
Naftali, you have to cut it very samach to chashecha, otherwise it's going to grow again. Your mamish have to be right there with the nail clipper before you jump into the mikvah, Naftali. You got to.
That's why he wants the daf always to be over early, to cut his nails right before Shabbos, so they don't grow back for that second before Shabbos. Whatever. Anyways, but the point is that, so Ravina holds that when you have foods that are attached to each other, it's not considered attached, because since they're going to eventually be detached, they're looked at as if they're detached now. If that's the case, then we could turn the tables and say, okay, so since these limbs are considered detached, so now if you have two detached limbs, then it's looked at like it is open. It's not hidden. Meaning we were saying that the tumah is going through the flesh, through the bones. It's never, it's a concealed tumah, right? But if you hold like Ravina, that these, even though they're attached now, since they're going to eventually be detached, so they're considered like detached, that means that this is considered open, right? This limb from this limb, we look at it as detached, so this is open, so then the tumah should hit that way. That's what we're asking. Ravina damar chibur oichlin lav chiburhu. They're going to touch each other and they're going to be tamei. So we have a different teretz. The one that says kazayas, we're talking about the lesbe kazayas. There was not a kazayas, so therefore it can't become tamei. Meaning the limb that went out of yerushalyim is talking about, the Mishna is talking about where it was less than a kazayas, so therefore there's no tamei there. Mandamasti kabeya, the lesbe kabeya. It's talking about where there was no kabeya there. Fine. Tashema. Somebody who takes korban pesach food from one group to another group. We know that you're not allowed to, and we're going to see more on Amud Beis, you're not allowed to eat it from one chabura to another chabura. No shul hopping, none of that korban pesach hopping. You're eating with one chabura, you got to stick with that chabura. Right? And it's a iser, it's a lav to go from one to the next. So even though it's an isser, let's say you did go from one chabura to the other chabura, even though you ever on a losa set, tahar, it's still tahar, right? Meaning till now we were discussing korbanos that became passul, are they matama? So we're saying here, even though this korban pesach, you're ever on an isser, but it's still tahar.
But the korban pesach wasn't over, he moved.
Right, but he's not allowed to do that with his korban pesach, it's not him.
Oh, he didn't go from one house to another and eat.
No, he's bringing his korban pesach.
He's part of a chabura. He's got to stay there.
Yeah, but he's bringing his own. No, I'm saying it's not shot that he's bouncing to another one to eat their food. He goes along with his own.
Naftali, you have to stay with your brothers. You can't go to Yaakov's house with your korban pesach.
One second, who said I wasn't with Yaakov in the first place?
Right.
Exactly. He's not with his brothers. He's with Yaakov.
He didn't want you because he's with his real brothers, Kanahara. He didn't want you there.
If he's smart, he'd be with his real brothers. I'm sure they would have a much fancier animal than me. Okay, all right. But anyway, so my lav tahar va'aser what does it mean? It means tahar, but it's aser to eat it, right? Why? The yatzim chabura lechabura ki yatzim chutzim mechitzazid. I mean, going from one chabura to another chabura is like going out of yerushalyim. Therefore, the animal's tar, but you're not allowed to eat it. Umifsal, and it's passul. Fafilu hachi katani. Tar, and you still see it's tar. So you see that the Rabbanan did not make a gzeira of tumah when it goes out of Yerushalayim. The Gemara is equating going out of Yerushalayim together with going from one chabura to another chabura. So we say no, lai tar umutter. What it means, it's tahar, and it's mutter to even eat the animal. The yatzim chabura lav ki yatzim chutzim mechitzas dami v'lai misal. Going out from one chabura to another chabura is not like going out of Yerushalayim, and it doesn't passul. It doesn't pass the korban.
I have such comments. They know the Jews can't get along.
So Gemara says, "V'hakatani seifa ha'oichlei hareze b'loisaseh." But the Sefer says if you eat it, you're on a loisase. Right? So avada there's no tumah on it. So Bishlam Levandam Kebeya, so we can say, according to Randam, it says the minimum amount is an egg's worth. So we can say the Isba Kazayas, so it only has a Kazayas, so therefore it can't become tamei, right? Tumah cannot go on anything less than a Kebeya. But less like a Kebeya, and it doesn't have a Kebeya. Elamandam Kazayas, but according to Randam, it says a Kazayas, Ma'ikul Meimar. What are you going to say? Right? They were saying since it's Asr, so it has to have at least a Kazayas, and the Brisa says it's Tar. So pesach like the when you go out with the korban pesach from one group to another group, there's no question there. There's no gezerah of tumah. My timer, what's the reason? B'nei chaburos reason hein, because people that are in the chaburos reason they're going to warn each other not to leave. Yeah, so they're going to say, "Hey, you're leaving. You're not allowed to leave. You're going to be over on Issa." Kodshim. Right? When you go out with kodshim, what's the din then? So then, meaning would that make it tamei? So the Gemara says, Teiku, we don't know. We don't know if what would the din be by other kodshim. Right? Meaning if somebody brings a korban privately, then is it a korban yachid? So then is it going to be an issue? Fine, so let's Teiku.
I have a quick hold on, I have a quick question for you over here.
Yeah, sure.
You're comparing removing the korban from yerushalyim, which is the physical on the animal, versus one guy from the chabura strayed. It doesn't affect the rest of the chabura. Right. One is on the animal, and one. So why are these two getting compared in this particular situation? They're different. It's a different bria.
So what are you saying? But that guy's personal meat that he brought is gonna be a problem, no?
Yes, but the problem is in your chabur you had 20 guys or whatever. One guy's got tzaras. But if you remove the animal, then 20 guys got tzaras.
You mean if you remove the animal
from yerushalyim?
Right. Okay. Yeah. And a chanami. So yeah. So what are you saying?
So I don't know why they're two getting compared in the same basket.
I mean, you stop asking on the comparison between going out of yerushalyim.
Yeah, they're not connected.
Right.
One is individual and one is tzibur.
I hear. Fair enough. I think it's just comparing the going out to going out. That's, I think. But I hear your point. It's a good question. Yeah. Okay, very good. So then the Gemara says, "U'maitzi basar pesach me chabura," on Amud Beis now, l'chabura minayin. How do you know it's usher to go from one chabura to another chabura? The Tanya loisaitzi min habayis min habasar chutza. You shouldn't bring out from the house basar outside. Ainly elami bayis lebayis. That only tells you to go from one house to another house. What about me chabura l'chabura minayin? What about within one house? There's two groups, right? One in one side of the house, one on another side of the house. So tamei chutza. It says outside, which means chutz la'achilasoi. Outside, it's eating. I mean, it doesn't have to be outside the house. Even within the same house, if you have two different chaburos, it's considered like, if you have two different chaburos, it's considered like going outside, even though they're both inside. Fine. So Amar Rav Ami, Hamaitzi basar pesach mechabura l'chabura. Somebody takes basar from Pesach from one group to another group. You're not chayav until you put it down. A fascinating din, meaning haitzah Shabbos, because it says take it out. We're learning it out haitzah just like Shabbos. Mas Shabbos adav akiru v'anocha. Right? We know what Hilchos Shabbos. In order to be chayav for carrying in Rishus Harabim, you got to pick it up and put it down. Or if you want to carry from Rishus Hayachid to Rishus Harabim to be chayav, you got to pick it up and put it down. Right? So since in this pasuk it says the word haitzah, so we learn it out from Shabbos. So therefore, let's say I go into a chabura with my meat and I'm eating it while I walk and I never stop walking. And I go around the chabura and I'm hanging out, I'm saying l'chaim to everybody, whatever it is, but I never stopped walking. So Rav Ami is saying, you're not chayav because you didn't do a hanacha. You have to pick it up in your chabura, walk to the other chabura, put it down, then you're chayav, just like Hotzah for Shabbos. Right? So afachanami adavar akira v'anocha. So just like by Shabbos it says the word Hotzah, so you're not chayav until you do an akira and anocha. So too by taking out the korban pesach. The question is,
are you yaitza without a seba?
You were yaitz already. Let's say you're eating a lot. Let's say you're eating a lot. You started with a seva, and then you went, right? You got a large portion of something, right? But the kshayla is, what about all the other requirements of haitzah? Makam dalet al dalet and all the other things. Is that also a requirement? Right? So okay, that's also a shayla that's debated. Fine. So then weiter in Gemara, Moshe Rabbi Amar Bar Mamal, how you soivlen oison b'maitos, when they were carrying out the animals from the that have to be burned, right? And you're taking them out of the chatzar. So harishayim yatsu chutz l'chaim hazara. When the first people, right? So they're carrying it all on like a stretcher, right, or whatever it is. So the first guys end up going out of the walls of the hazara. V'achrayim lo yatsu. Now the guys in the back have not yet gone out, right? Yeah. So harishayim metamin begadim. The Rishonim, their begadim become tamei. V'achronim em tamei begadim. And the people in the back there, they don't become. They're not tamei yet, right? So v'haloi nach. So Gemara said, what do you mean? But the same isser is.
What's the case?
They're carrying out the meat to be burned outside of the Beis Hamikdash.
When? What?
No, nothing to do with. This has nothing to do with korban pesach. The Rashi says the par Basir Yom Kippur, par Helam Davar, par Kohen Mashiach, all those things. So the Mishnah in Yuma says that whoever takes them out becomes tamei, right? So now they're going to come out. They're going to go out. The tumah is going to happen in two different stages. The guys that are carrying the front end are going to become tamei before the guys on the back end, right? So that's the case. So again, let's see again. How you if they're carrying the meat on maitos on like a mita, sorry shaynim yatsu chutz l'chaim hazara, v'achrayim lo yatsu. Sorry shaynim etam begadim, v'achrayim lo etam begadim. But they didn't put it down yet. If you're saying that haitzah, anytime that says haitzah, once it leaves the Beis Hamikdash, it becomes tamei, but you have to put it down. They never put it down. They're still walking. So who must have said, right? So that's the quite meaning. If you're saying every time there's haitzah, you learn out from Shabbos. So you're not allowed. Once you're allowed to take this. These are meant to be burned outside the Beis Hamikdash. But bottom line is that people that bring it outside the Beis Hamikdash become tamei. But you need to have a hanacha. They didn't do hanacha. So it says, who must have loved, who mefarak lo. He asked the question and he answered it b'nigrarin, talking about where they dragged it on the floor, right? Which means it's as if it's resting on the ground. So therefore he did a hanacha, right? Fine. So that's and Rashi says it's love to the Taisus. I'm sorry, says it doesn't mean that they dragged it on the ground. It means it's within 3 tvachim of the ground. And we know with lovud, that good old lovud from Erevin, we know that anything within 3 tvachim of the ground is considered like it's part of the ground, and therefore it's as if it came to rest, and that's why they become tamei. Fine. This next Mishna, next Gemara is a major COVID Gemara. Matches Amud Aleph, right? This is a major Gemara that was very negeya almost exactly a year ago. All the big shilas are in this Gemara. So Aver, not the big shilas of the health, the big shilas of minyan. Yeah, so Zakti, first we could do the Mishnah. Aver sheyatza miktsasai, right? This Mishnah we quoted already twice. And Aver, who's part of the Aver, went out of Yerushalyim. You cut the meat. You cut the meat until it goes to the bone. The kailif, and you peel the meat until you hit the, what did you say it again, Gershon? The not the limb, the joint. To the joint. The joint. Thank you. And then you cut it there. By hektish kaitzitz b'kaifitz. You by regular hektish. And it goes out of Yerushalayim, so you're allowed to break the bone. So what do? You just take a meat, a chopper, whatever.
Why are you doing it with a cleaver and not with a knife?
It's just easier to. I think it's just easier to cut the bones like that. No, I think it's just a practical thing. When Mikdash and kaitzitz b'kaifitz shein b'mishum shviras etzim, because by regular kodshim there's no isser to break the bone. Fine. Min ha'agav ulefnim kilefnim. If you're standing in the doorway, that's as if you're inside. Min ha'agav ulechutz kilechutz. If you're standing in the doorway towards the outside, then you're on the outside, which is clearly a stira, because one way it says the agaf. What's the story with the agaf? Meaning, if you're inside the agaf is the doorway, right, or the door jamb, or whatever it is, right? So if you're standing inside the door jamb, so you're considered part of the house. If you're outside, then you're at a house. But what about the agav itself? The agav itself is a stira. Okay, we'll get that in the Gemara. The windows and the thickness of the wall are part of inside of Yerushalyim, right? So the walls of Yerushalyim, the old city walls, are quite thick. What happens if a guy decides to sit on the wall and enjoy his korban that way? Right? He wants to eat his korban with a view. I guess the whole chaburos is doing it too, right? So is that considered outside of Yerushalayim? So the Mishna says no. The windows that they have in the old city and the thickness of the wall are considered that part of Yerushalayim. Fine. So Zok the Gemara, Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Rab, v'chein litfila. Same thing with davening, meaning when you're making a minyan in a room, anybody who's inside the doorway is considered part of the inside. If they're standing outside the doorway, they're outside. And Rashi says, what is this talking about? Right? That can be part of the minyan. If they're outside of the door, and then they can't be part of the minyan. Upliga the Rabbi Shua ben Levi. It's chaylik on Rabbi Shua ben Levi. Dam Rabbi Shua ben Levi. Afilu mechitza shel barzel, even a metal wall. Einam afsekas ben Yisrael avim shebashamayim. That can't separate Klal Yisrael from the avim shebashamayim. Now again.
Okay.
So Tosfos,
we like him.
What?
We like him.
True. So, but what was this negeya to all the COVID minyanim? Right. So you had people that wanted to be mitzdaref with a minyan, and they were in different houses. So how can you combine them? So according to Rabbi Shua ben Levi, you're allowed to combine them. The way Rashi understands Rabbi Yehuda Marav, it's v'chein l'tfila. It doesn't work. They have to all be in the same room, right? We should never know from it, but it's a benegeya to minyanim when people making the oval minyanim in people's houses. So really, l'chatchila, you should have everybody standing in the same room, right? Not in different rooms. Tosfos, the Tosfos v'chein l'tfila disagrees, right? Because Rashi says it's talking about to make a minyan, right? So Tosfos says we're talking about for a yochid to answer kedusha and yehesh meiravo, and he holds that's the mechitza is not mafsek. The Rabbi Shua ben Levi, but according to Rabbi Yehuda, right, then it would be. Rabbi Yehuda Marav, it would be mafsik. You're not allowed to answer because you're not part of the minyan. Right? Fine. Okay, so that's the machlokes. Yeah.
That's even more mafsik. So for sure, if you can't answer kedusha, for sure you can't make the minyan.
Right. So now you're going to say like this, we made all these street minyanim with people on different sides of the street. So how did that work? Right?
Yo, what if you're in the hallway and in the shul? And you hear them from
in the shul, right, hallway in the shul, yeah.
I seem to remember that someone was not so in favor of those.
That's true. That is true. But Lamaisa, what were they Saimachan? They were Saimachan, the Shita of the Rashba, who held by Birchas Hamazon, as long as you see each other, you can combine. And then the Mishnah Berurah brought that there are Shitas that hold that the same way it works, seeing works for Birchas Hamazon, it also works for davening. So
what about all these? What about the base measures in Shayashiv and the base measures cotton when they take out the glass walls, but there's still that big?
Yeah, that's a good question. That's a good question because it's a separate rule.
Your father did not like that on your Yom Kippur.
I don't know. I
mean, it's a completely separate room. It's like, what would be the difference between that and standing in a room that has an open door?
Right. And what about?
Yeah, but they're taking out the glass.
So what? You can keep the door open.
Separate room. What about Ezra's Noshim?
That's my seat. So my seat's no good?
What?
That's my seat.
No,
my seat is no good.
Not again. There's a minyan in that room. There's a minyan in both rooms.
Okay.
Right? So it's no problem. The question is if you want to be Roiv Am, do we combine it together to have like 1,000 people?
How can you? Because there's no one davening for the Amud in the base measures cotton. And everyone theoretically, according to this opinion, everyone who's sitting in the base measures cutting like I did, with the windows open, is not part of the minyan.
According to Rabbi Shua ben Levi, it is.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
Right. So if we sign Mechan, Rabbi Shua ben
Okay,
Levi,
so you're not
that's okay.
Yaitz according to Rabbi Shua ben Levi. Okay, so you have what?
No,
now you're
we're having a conversation about this whole thing. Why is this such a problem that you have to comment on it?
Because
I'm asking a question.
Right.
So I said, so you're not Yaitz according to Rabbi Shua ben Levi.
We're having this whole discussion about it.
You wanted to know
one
if
side of the street, the other side of the street, in the door, out of the door, in the door jam. Well, how is it?
One second. What about?
I don't understand the concept that this base medrash cotton is not part of the big minyan when they take out the glass. I have no idea what they're talking about.
Then what's the difference between that and keeping a door open?
It's not the same thing. Why is this not? It's the same room.
100% it is.
It's the same room.
One second. What about a different shiloh? So 1 second. An Ezra's Nashim. Or those Rebbes. Let's take another thing. Let's bring it to the Rebbes for Elio Ikovic, okay? The Rebbes that daven in their own rooms off the Bais Medrash. They're Yaitza or not?
You know, I've tried to find. I've tried to find them.
Hold on. They're Yaitza what exactly? What are they Yaitza what? The Rebbes don't need them.
What?
They're Medafnish, the Rebbes.
Oh, they don't need a minion. That's a different story.
Yeah, they're Lamala from the whole thing.
Well, then once you have 10 people in a room and you can see them, you can connect. You can't.
The question is it roivam? Is it a connection? Is it not a connection? Yeah.
Right. The question is, it's different levels to be mitzdaref with the 10 or to be part of the 10.
Yeah, I don't know. Whatever it is, it's a big tumult. This thing. And the bottom line is, lechatchila is, listen, if you have a separate minyan in each room, right? The Simon, you have a Bais Medrash cut and a minyan, you have a minyan in the main Bais Medrash, and then it's fine. It's the problem is when you have 5 guys in the Bais Medrash cut and 5 guys in the Bais Medrash, right? Do they combine? So Rashi would hold they don't combine. Tosfos would seem to hold that they do combine, right?
I'm asking something along the same lines. Meaning, like anyone who davened in that minyan for Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, or in those seats, Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, according to this, they're not. According to this opinion, they are not part of the minyan. So then,
they have their own minyan though?
No, because they can't. Because no one's davening for the Amud inside the Bais Medrash cotton. We're being samech on the fact that there's that. Yeah,
but you don't need
we're being samech on the fact that.
Agreed. According to this opinion, it wouldn't be good. But we don't.
No, it's still 1 second. Who says you need a chazan? Who says you need a chazan? I mean, I have negias, but I'm just saying. Who says you need a chazan? You have 10 people davening together. That's all.
What about answering? Who are you answering main to?
Yeah, or shofar, as Santek just wrote. What about shofar?
Right. So shofar, I think Tosfos says. Hold on a second. I'm Yotzei
with Marchuks.
Right, look, the Tosfos ends off very good. The Tosfos ends off. Ava shofar loy asara. Shofar doesn't need 10. So now I don't know what he means there. He means like if you have 5 in one room blowing the shofar and 5 in another room blowing the shofar. Tosfos is saying, who cares? You don't need 10 for the shofar anyways.
No, but if
the shofar also, you can be standing outside the shul.
Well, yeah. What if they're in another room?
The Beferish Mishna, you could be outside walking by and hear the shofar.
Yes. It's a Beferish Mishna. Shofar, you just have to hear it. You don't have to be there.
Uh-huh.
And what about Megillah? Same thing about hearing.
You have to hear the bracha.
What?
You have to hear the bracha.
You don't have the brachas are never ma'akiv. Brachas are never ma'akiv. Right? But sometimes, people do, if you forget, you can make the bracha yourself. You can make the bracha yourself for the shofar. Right?
By all mixes, it's the case, though. It's separate. Like that's why we pick up the asterisk upside down, no?
Yes, that's true. Yeah. Okay. So let's see weiter. Anyway, so that's the big tumult with that's the whole sugi of making the minyanim was based on this Gemara. Fine. So Hagufa Kasha. Now the Gemara says Hagufa Kasha. Amrit mina agaf lifnim kilifnim from the agaf.
Yaakov.
Yeah.
If you don't want to spend any more time, it's fine. But I don't have any idea why you're saying that this Beis Medrash cut in Sheyoshiv is not part of the big Beis Medrash. So it has a higher floor, big deal.
It's a separate room.
Why is it a separate room?
Why? Because that's the way the structure is. It's a separate room. It's not the same room.
Who told you it's a separate room?
The fact that I walk in, there are different doors to it?
What?
What does it mean? There's a door to one room and there's a door to the other room, and you can't go from one to the other.
The big Beis Medrash has 6 different doors. What's the?
You can't go for the Beis Medrash.
You
can't walk into the big room.
You don't see how it's a separate room?
No, I don't want to see how it's a separate room. No,
you don't want to. That's a different. You don't want
to. Aaron, I'll give you a proof you'll appreciate. It's a separate room because they have different people who donated the Beis Medrash and the Beis Medrash cutting.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
No, Ravine, you can't walk from the Beis Medrash cutting to the Beis Medrash.
We should have a field trip and show that there are 2 different rooms.
Aaron, I'll bring you a raya separate room.
You to decide if you want to go daven Yom Noraim again in yeshiva. You'll worry about it then. Until then, don't worry about it.
I'm not worried about it.
Aaron, the rayas, they have separate donors for the Beis Medrash and the Beis Medrash cutting.
And Bergman's upset because they moved the minyanim out. He paid for minyanim, paid $250,000, and they don't daven in where his room is. Yeah,
okay, so there you go.
Mirta Shem one day will come back, okay? Don't worry.
One second. According to you, you could say the main Beis Medrash is part of his minyan. Bergman shouldn't be upset.
If I spoke to Bergman, I maybe would tell him that. When do I see him?
Doc, are we finished yet, or I have to stay on for the rest of this conversation?
I don't see anybody, so for sure I don't see Bergman.
A few more minutes.
Isn't the bookcases a minimum shear for a mechitza?
Yes.
So if that's the case, wouldn't that make it a din of a different room?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. As long
but
as
the bookcases aren't permanent. What about the cement wall that's not as tall?
It's a big question. What happens if somebody has, like many people have between their living room and their dining room, they have, how do you call, I don't know, what do you call it?
An archway.
An archway. So can you combine those 2 people? Let's say 5 in one room with an archway in between. Can you combine them or not?
Are you asking us?
Yeah, right. You have to ask you. We don't have to ask us.
It's pashtus is according to this Gemara. It doesn't. According to Rabbi Shulman Levi, it counts. According to the Tana review the Amarav, it does not count because it's Atzuras Pesach makes it into a different room.
Right? What about one of those temporary walls, like in the dining room, where they slide it closed, but if it's 5 on one side, 5 on the other while it's closed?
I don't know. That's a good question. I don't know. That's taka. That's because that's not a tzuras pesach.
So that has to do with what you just described has to do with the mezuzah also. Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny. Of course, as we're talking, somebody just sent me pictures of a tzuras pesach of mezuzah. They want to know if it's a tzuras pesach or not. Right. So it's the shilas is a tully in tzuras pesach. What exactly is a tully in? Right. Also, the bigger question is ezus nashim, because Lamaisa ezus nashim is part of the Beis Medrash. If you have 5 guys in the ladies section and 5 guys downstairs, can you combine them?
Not if they're wearing tefillin. No.
Oh, very good. Okay.
Not if they're wearing masks.
Yeah. Anyways, not if they're women either. But okay, but we're not.
You can't combine them, no.
It's debatable if they could see each other. Again, we didn't do the sheet of seeing each other, but that's not.
Does a mask count as a mechitza or no?
Could be.
Depends on the mask.
Let's see weiter. Yeah. So hagufa kasha. Amrit min ha'agav filafnim kilafnim. We said from the doorway inside is inside. Ha'agav atzmoi. It's mashman at the agav, meaning, let's say, of course, you have that one winner who can't step inside the room, right? He's got to stand in the doorway. So what's the deal with him, right? So it's mashma, right? From the agav, from the door jamb, in the inside is the inside. Ha'agav atzmai. The agav itself is mashma kelechutz. Fine. So then ema sefer min agav kelechutz kelechutz. Ha'agav atzmai kelefnim. Right, so it's a stira. What is the deal with the actual doorway? When it says "Lekasha kam b'sharei azara kam b'sharei yerushalyim," one is talking about in the gate of the azara. So the Beis Hamikdash doorways, gateways, whatever you want to call it, are considered part of the Beis Hamikdash. The gates of Yerushalayim are considered outside Yerushalayim. So it comes out that it's interesting because it comes out that the gates of Yerushalayim are considered like the outside, but the windows and the top, we said at the end of the Mishnah, are considered inside. Okay, the Amr of Shmuel bar of Yitzchak, Mipnei ma lo niskatsh shari Yerushalayim. How come they weren't makdish the gates of Yerushalayim and make them part of Yerushalayim? Mipnei shemitzarayin maginin tachtein b'chama. The people that had tsaras or corona, who wanted to be part of the minyan, so they wanted to, they stay outside, but they want to be able to hide under the gate, but they want to still be part of whatever's going on. And then they need some place to hide because of the sun and the rain. How come they didn't make the gate of Nikanor in the Beis HaMikdash? Why didn't they make it Kaidish? Because when somebody has tzaras, so when the person has tzaras on the 8th day, they got to come to Yerushalayim and they got to put the blood. How does it go? The blood goes on the right thumb, the left thumb, and from the thumbs of the feet too, right? But they can't come into the Beis HaMikdash, so they weren't makdish the what do you call it? The Shah Nikanor like this. What'd you say? Yeah. So, but so they couldn't come into the Beis HaMikdash to get the blood put onto them. So what do? They just stick in an arm and their leg one at a time. That's fine. And then they stick in their hands inside to the Shar Nikanor. But if they would have made the Shar Nikanor hektish, then they wouldn't be able to even be able to do that. So therefore, that's why we are. That's why they weren't makdish it. All right. Oh, a little long tonight, but okay. It was an interesting Gemara. Fine. All right. Good enough, everybody.
Did you see this?
Yeah. What do you want, Leo?
Yeah, you were talking before about Rayvan. So how does that apply this year for Purim? If everyone's making backyard minyanim, should they go somewhere? Should they go somewhere that doesn't have as many rules to have a Rayvan?
Is that what they're doing in Phoenix?
No. In Phoenix, in Phoenix they have regular. No, I'm asking in New York. Let's say.
You're asking in New York. Should you? I mean, you got to do whatever's safe.
Right? Yeah.
So I'm saying if they're saying safety first, then that comes first. That takes the place of Rayvam.
Right.
Yeah.
Bianco.
Yeah.
I thought of a good word in regard to the Rebbes davening by themselves.
Yeah.
The Rebbes are like pigul. Chutzim man, chutzlim kama.
Very good. I don't know if that's going to go over so well with the Chassidim. But
they probably left the chat already.
Okay, that's good. It's a good one. It said like a true New Rochelle person.
And anyone who touches them without rishus becomes tamei.
Yeah. Very good. Yeah. All right.
They have to go to mikveh by themselves.
That's for sure. And they also don't sleep in any bed that anybody else did. Yeah. All right. Okay. Good night, everybody. Simon, are you there, Simon?
Yeah, I'm here.
The Olam came to your support in your kasha.
Why is there always got to be a fight?
Because it's not a fight. It's not a fight. That's the way he talks. That's all. I tell you, it's not a fight. I've been learning with the guy for 15 years every day. It's not a fight. But Itaka doesn't understand why he doesn't understand.
Simon, my kids are thankful that their name is not Naftali. That's what they told me. We're so happy my name is not Naftali because Aaron Horowitz would yell at us every night.
I can't get a statement out without him screaming at me.
That's the way he does it. He's just talking.
Simon needs to come on the morning codes, Yaakov.
He's just talking.
It's not, but I can handle.
Yes, sometimes it's counterproductive. Yes.
It's counterproductive. Just stop talking already. Like, I'm asking a question. Obviously, I don't understand something. Shkoyach, you're a genius. Okay, so
no, Adarabah, he was with you. He understood less than you. That's what he was saying.